My wife, Eleanor, lost both her mother and her secret lover on the same day. It was a tragedy born from deceit. Her mother and her personal trainer, caught in a clandestine embrace within a car, consumed by an inferno. Eleanor wept until her breath hitched, clinging to me as her last remaining family. Yet, I had long harbored a chilling secret. That so-called accidental blaze was, in fact, a deadly surprise, meticulously arranged by Eleanor, meant for me. Chapter 1. Terror in the Torrential Rain. I crushed my 13th beer can, the sharp metallic sound lost in the drumming rain. On the in-car GPS, a red dot pulsed ominously over the Grand Serenity Hotel in the New District. Eleanor's designer handbag lay on the passenger seat, a glint of gold peeking from its inner pocket, a key card for room 328. Its surface bore the logo of the Peak Performance Studio, and a faint dusting of whey protein, residue from his bulk-up powder, still clung to its edge. I'm taking Marcus to the IMAX showing of Oppenheimer tonight. Don't wait up. 3 hours earlier, Eleanor had uttered those words, her lips slick with the cherry-scented lipstick I'd given her. The fragrance, mingled with the sandalwood from her hair, now made my stomach churn. Even on its highest setting, the wipers struggled against the deluge. Directly across, and 1 floor up, the floor-to-ceiling window of room 328 glowed with a soft, inviting yellow. Its sheer curtain, caught by a gust, billowed inward by about 30 degrees. The curtain isn't drawn, Eleanor's voice, carried by the wind and rain, seemed to whisper in my ear. I raised my high-powered binoculars. Through the lens, a dark bruise on her collarbone stood out with stark clarity. This morning, she'd casually blamed a yoga ball. Now, the grim truth glared back. She was colliding with Marcus, and not with a yoga ball, inside that hotel room. Rain suddenly splattered the lens. I furiously wiped it with my sleeve, my molars grinding audibly. Eleanor, Marcus murmured, his voice a low thrum. Any progress on that divorce we discussed? Eleanor's laugh, sharp and brittle, merged with the thunder. Once that idiot's personal accident policy clears its waiting period, I won't be divorcing. I'll be a widow. I pressed the record button on my device. Eleanor, seemingly sensing something, turned towards the window. Instinctively, I recoiled, melting deeper into the shadows. There's a reflection, she said, pulling a thin blanket across her. Marcus chuckled, dismissive. Who'd tell you on a night like this? Your dim-witted IT nerd of a husband must be at the office, coding away. The light in 328 extinguished. I saved the video to a USB stick and went downstairs. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely fit the key into the ignition. Suddenly, the car's Bluetooth blared. Will you marry me today? The custom ringtone Eleanor had set years ago when we married. Back then, she'd nibbled my ear, whispering, "This song is perfect for a straight-laced IT nerd like you." Really hits the spot. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel, the horns blare ripping through the rain. The autumn equinox is coming, and this straight-laced IT nerd is going to send you both straight to hell. Chapter 2. The Malfunction Plot. That night, I chain-smoked an entire pack of cigarettes, their embers sparking like angry eyes in the dark. The next morning, at the crack of dawn, Eleanor returned home, looking utterly drained. She slipped the Mercedes key into the inner pocket of my suit. Her perfume had shifted to a cedar-based note, but it couldn't mask the lingering scent of men's aftershave on her blouse cuffs. I spent the night at my best friend's place, she said, her voice a forced casualness. The dealership says the transmission's making a weird noise. Could you check it out? She lowered her head to fix my tie, the hickeys beneath her collarbone now masked by a thick layer of foundation. Oh, and pick up my mink coat from the dry cleaner while you're at it. I nodded blankly. After all, pretending was part of the game. I slowly drove towards the cross-coastal bridge. And just as expected, the brakes suddenly locked up. The dashboard flashed an alert. Transmission oil temperature maxed out. The acrid smell of burning rubber mingled with blue smoke curling up from the chassis. Calmly, I pulled open the hidden compartment under the seat. The remote fuel shutoff device I had installed last week saved my life. 3 months ago, when I first uncovered the sordid affair between Eleanor and Marcus, I began tailing them. That's when I stumbled upon something far more twisted. Marcus was also involved with my mother-in-law, Victoria, a detail Eleanor was completely oblivious to. That night, in a camera-blind spot, I watched Victoria jab a syringe into the brake fluid line. "Marcus," she'd purred, her voice chillingly sweet. "Is this dose enough to send him flying into the sea? Make him fish food." Marcus had replied with equal malice. "Once he's dead, Eleanor gets 3 luxury apartments and tens of millions from the dead guy's fortune. And she's not even your real daughter by blood. If we get rid of her next, we'll be free to fly away together." Then, Marcus and Victoria erupted in shared, gleeful laughter. Later, traffic police recovered the deformed brake pump. Forensics found an excessive amount of dimethyl silicone oil, an aerospace lubricant exclusively used at Marcus's gym. At this point, there was no denying it. They wanted me dead. There was only one outcome now: total war. Eleanor, when you discover Victoria isn't your biological mother, when you realize she's been screwing Marcus too, what kind of face will you make? I can't wait to see it. Chapter 3. First Encounters in the Conspiracy. The first time I saw Eleanor was at 3 o'clock in the morning, right after the company's server crashed. As the new accountant, she was hunched in front of the server room, quietly eating a sandwich. The smear of cream at the corner of her lips reminded me of the plump, orange cat back in my hometown. That night, I spent a grueling 47 minutes fixing the system, just so she could finally go home. "George," Eleanor had said earlier, her eyes sparkling, "you're a tech genius." Beneath the coffee cup she handed me were 2 movie tickets. In the comfortable darkness of the theater, I gently took her hand. My first encounter with Victoria was in late autumn of 2018. She held the premium jasmine pearl tea I'd given her, her manicured fingertip tracing the price tag. "Is Mr. Thompson a programmer?" she'd inquired, her voice dripping with condescension. "The kind that fixes computers?" After tossing the tea into the trash, the splashes hit my designer shoes, bought with 3 months of my salary. Then, with her gold and jade cigarette holder, she lifted the fresh sea base my father had brought. "A fish vendor from the wet market wants to be my in-law," she'd sneered, the blood seeping from the fish's gills staining her freshly painted nails. It poured on our wedding day. Eleanor, despite the weather, insisted on wearing a strapless gown. Beneath her collarbone were the tattooed initials of my name, which Victoria quickly covered with a shawl. The officiant asked me to kneel and serve the tea. The moment my fingers brushed the Celadone cup's rim, Victoria sharply pulled her hand back. "Do all the Thompson men collect red envelopes on their knees?" she drawled, and the entire room erupted in laughter. I glanced toward my father's table. His calloused hands nervously rubbed together, clutching a red envelope containing the 888 yuan he'd painstakingly saved by selling 3 acres of sugarcane. "Please, esteemed in-law, have your tea," my father said, bowing his back as he offered the cup. Victoria's mink coat brushed his cracked nails as she remarked, "They say your village just got internet this year. No wonder young Thompson here is so obsessed with the Wi-Fi password." She deliberately raised her voice on the last words, and one of the videographers stifled a laugh so hard his camera shook. Eleanor squeezed my hand under the table. There was a fresh cut on her palm from the photo frame we'd smashed during a fight the night before. She had cried then, saying, "Mom's doing this for your own good." Now, that wound felt like shards of glass embedded in me. During the toast, Victoria stopped the waiter. "Replace everything with Louis XIII, she commanded. "Put it on young Thompson's tab." I stared at the price, 28,888 yuan on the wine list. Eleanor rushed to mediate. "Mom, my husband's company just asked staff to invest. He's low on cash." Victoria cut her off. "So what if you're raising funds? You think his salary will ever reach the sky? Keep dreaming. Just like your dad's bulldog looks fierce, but one tug on the leash and he flops right over." That night, I crouched in the alley behind the hotel and vomited until I saw stars. When Eleanor found me, my phone screen was lit with a message from her mother. "No wedding night for now. Mr. Davies' son is back from Oxford today. Put on the red dress I gave you and go meet him." Eleanor hesitated for a long time, but she didn't leave. Chapter 4. Love Turns to Venom. The marital apartment was paid for entirely out of my own pocket. In the first few years after the wedding, we were madly in love, and I worked tirelessly to provide her with an ever-better life. The moment she started hitting the gym, everything changed. Every day, she commuted in Marcus's car. She claimed it was just her trainer giving her a lift. Yet, only recently did I learn from the dashcam logs that they slammed on the brake 17 times along Riverside Road. Once, while repairing her computer, I found a video file hidden on the D drive in full HD 1080p. Marcus's monstrous biceps were squeezing the bruises on her waist. What truly ignited my murderous intent, though, was the accident insurance file. Eleanor had secretly switched the beneficiary on my accidental death policy from spouse to my mother-in-law, Victoria, and slipped the notarized document into the blockchain code I was writing through the night. Now, they were poised to kill me and seize my entire estate. It's true that in the past few years, my career has skyrocketed. The programs I wrote are all wildly profitable, and with my founder shares, I'm worth tens of millions. I have money now, but my beloved is gone, replaced by a viper. Chapter 5, The Death Plot. The next day, thanks to the Trojan I'd planted on her phone, I learned their next move. Last time, the brake failure was dumb luck for him, Marcus said softly. Eleanor's jade bangle tapped rhythmically against the marble counter. After a long hesitation, she said, "Honestly, if I just file for divorce, he'd still have to give me half the assets." Marcus chuckled, a low, predatory sound. "Why settle for half, when we can take it all? How about the electrified pool plan this time?" I cranked up the gain amplifier. Victoria's voice chimed in. "That fool's safe in his study is fireproof. We need him to open it himself. We have to get his shares and everything else first." Then, Victoria added casually, "Or stage a home invasion on a stormy night." Marcus laughed. "We could feed him pufferfish liver. Didn't you get some radioactive contaminants too? Fake cancer caused by nuclear pollution." Victoria giggled. "The more we talk, the wilder it sounds. Let's just mess with the car again. He already crashed once. I'll talk him into buying a brand new Benz, and we'll pull the old switcheroo. He won't even know what killed him." Marcus laughed as well. "He's going to his mother's grave in a couple of days, right? Perfect. Let the whole family have a reunion." Eleanor seemed to waver. "Maybe we should just drop it." But Victoria and Marcus mocked her until she fell silent. I saved every bit of audio and synced it to the cloud. Beside me, the printer spat out 3 blank autopsy forms, matching the deaths they'd plotted for me. Cardiac arrest by electrocution, respiratory paralysis from tetrodotoxin, and a body charred to ash in an arson fire. On the basement workbench, sticks of white phosphorus incense were taking shape in the 3D printer. The fascia gun was charging, and a pufferfish was puffed up adorably. All of these would soon become the nails sealing their own coffins. A patrol car's lights flashed outside the window as I swallowed my 4th mint. The chill slid down my throat like a honed blade about to leave its sheath. They have angered a programmer straight to hell. All of them. Chapter 6, Fatal Counterstrike. Those 3 tailored deaths are my own design, a grim tapestry woven with their own malice. But since they still mean to kill me, I have to be fully prepared. While they were at home plotting my demise, I walked straight into the gym where Marcus works. There are no cameras in the locker room. On the inside of the 3rd locker he uses, sweat salt still lingered. With a pre-made fingerprint film, I easily copied the keypad code. When I slid my modified massage gun into its charging dock, the built-in capacitor began storing energy, cannibalized from a scrap defibrillator. 12 volts, more than enough to trigger ventricular fibrillation through damp skin. On the spin bike that only Marcus uses, I adjusted a resistor and locked the output at his usual 300-watt setting. If Marcus grips the handlebars, conductive gel will seep from the heart rate sensors. Exactly 45 minutes in, right when he hits VO2 max, the capacitor's pulse will merge with the bike's current. The coroner will see nothing but the textbook signs of an exertional myocardial infarction. Nothing to do with me. When I got home, Marcus was already gone. Victoria gave me a scornful little smile, folded her arms, and announced, "Let me drive your Benz for now. You go buy yourself a new one, the same model is fine." I nodded and smiled. "Mom, you really do look out for me." Eleanor stood off to the side, lips pressed tight, her eyes flickering. Victoria snorted. "A man needs his pride. After all the years you've slogged for this family, consider this a little treat." I nodded again and strolled back to the bedroom. Mother and daughter whispered in the living room. I noticed Eleanor's luxury lipstick was almost finished. With a syringe, I drew 3 milliliters of liquid pufferfish toxin and blended it into a fresh tube of the same shade. A single gram of that purified poison can kill 300 people. In microdoses, it merely causes a slow paralysis of the respiratory muscles. Once she applies it and habitually licks her lips, the toxin will seep through capillaries into the bloodstream. Mild dyspnea will send her to the ER. The doctor, seeing her asthma history, will prescribe an inhaler, unaware that salbutamol speeds the toxin's binding to neuromuscular junctions. Also, none of my concern. Next, I went to the villa's ancestral hall. Before my father-in-law's spirit tablet, I sprinkled white phosphorus powder into the incense burner. Kneeling on a floor cushion, I used my phone to raise the underfloor heating to 28 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, the phosphorus dust will self-ignite after 72 hours, and the ethanol gel carpet flashes at precisely 65 degrees Celsius. I can already picture it. As Marcus collapses, the gym's backup power kicks in. Staff pry open his eyes, flashlight probing for a pupillary reflex, shouting, "Call an ambulance." I could also see Eleanor in the emergency ward, clutching a nebulizer, spiderweb rashes blooming on her neck, mistaken for allergic purpura. I would gently pat her back and offer her water, wiping the spittle from her sleeve with my fingertips. I could even picture it. When the white phosphorus dust ignites the curtains and sparks scatter, the whole house will turn into a crematorium. Victoria will be dancing a graceful waltz in the villa. Marcus's report will read, sudden cardiac death, no electrical burns detected. Eleanor's severe asthma with respiratory failure, toxin metabolites chalked up to seafood allergy. Victoria will display classic fire damage, body contorted by heat shrinkage. All of it unconnected to me. The various loan inquiries closely tied to me suffering accidents in the same window of time. But I can't worry about that now. They want me dead, and I can't wait much longer. Chapter 7. Nighttime recon at the workshop. During the day, I returned to the company, liquidated all my shares, and wired tens of millions in cash into my father's account. Then, I sat still and waited for the game to begin. But by nightfall, the situation had shifted. Marcus never showed up at the gym. Eleanor never used that lipstick. My mother-in-law was gone from the house. Guided by the GPS ping from Victoria's phone, I slipped into a second-hand auto modification shop after midnight. Through a ventilation duct, I watched Marcus inject dimethyl silicone oil into a brake fluid reservoir. Victoria's mink coat lay spread across the hydraulic lift. "Baby, this time there can't be any slip-ups," Marcus said, his voice low and urgent. "As soon as he brings home the new car, I'll make him drive this old one." Victoria answered, "Relax. The mountain road on Ancestors' Day is perfect." Marcus let out a chilly laugh. "No way it fails, just like when we killed your husband 3 years ago." Then he went on, "Eleanor is your husband's child, not yours, so there's no need to leave her any money. When it's over, we'll run off together." I narrowed my eyes. The police file on my father-in-law's crash had blamed overheated brakes. Now, they were recreating that very death equation. "Eleanor, you're such a complete fool." Chapter 8. The Bait and Switch. Early the next morning, I picked up an identical Mercedes and parked it outside the house. Victoria's eyes glittered. Pressing her lips together, she said, "George, this new car is gorgeous. Let me drive it. You're visiting the graves today, so take the old one." She added with a smile, "Eleanor and I are going to her father's grave too. We'll take the brand new Benz." I stared at the modified Mercedes and nodded lightly. Eleanor shot me a wary look and asked, "You're sure you still want to drive that car?" Victoria frowned and shoved Eleanor back into the house. I drove the tampered Mercedes out of the villa. What they didn't know was that I had swapped the cars during the night. The one I'm driving is actually the new vehicle. I only scratched the paint. The car still at the villa is the real new Benz, but I've resprayed it. A perfect bait and switch. Let them reap what they've sown. Cautiously steering toward the cemetery, I heard a strange noise over the phone's live feed. To my surprise, Eleanor hadn't gone with Victoria to the grave. Marcus had gone instead. Chapter 9. Car Crash. In the Ancestors' Day morning fog, Victoria's red Mercedes spiraled up Luoyang Mountain Road. On the passenger side, Marcus sat with his eyes closed. "Slow down," he murmured. "We've got time. Once that crash kills him, everything he owns is ours." "I want it to be thrilling," Victoria replied, flooring the gas. The dashboard oil temperature needle hit its red line. At the hairpin by the mid-slope overlook, Marcus suddenly sniffed the air. Dimethyl silicone oil was boiling inside the brake lines, and the steering wheel began to shudder violently. The screech of metal on metal exploded. Victoria's eyes flew wide. The moment the Mercedes punched through the guardrail, the overheated silicone ignited. Flames roared into the sky. By the time firefighters arrived, 2 charred corpses were still locked in an embrace. When Eleanor and I got to the scene, she stood there stupefied, whispering, "Impossible, impossible." The traffic police captain said, "Accident." He stubbed out his cigarette. "Third luxury car fire this month. These people play too hard. Unbelievable." Victoria's jade bangle lay encased amid the wreckage. The inner YTC engraving was glazed blood red by the flames. Eleanor kept muttering, "Impossible. How could they be together?" Then she collapsed, curling up on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Days passed in a haze. Victoria's memorial was set for the 3rd day after Ancestors' Day. I deliberately chose the charcoal gray suit she had hated most. Eleanor said, "Mom loved cleanliness, darling. Please brush it off properly." When she handed me the urn, her eyes skittered away. Once, she would have ordered me to kowtow, but not now. Marcus was no kin of mine. I had no duty to cremate him in the morgue. Eleanor pressed her lips together, then suddenly looked up, frowning. Honey, do you know something? I shrugged. Know what? That a personal trainer was having an affair with your mother? Come on. Eleanor's mouth twitched, her stare brimming with fear. It was you, she screamed, grabbing a veteran detective's uniform sleeve and shouting at me. Under the precinct's fluorescent tubes, her pupils shattered like the windows blown out at the cremation site. I stroked the burn scar in the web of my hand, the one she'd given me 3 years ago when she accidentally spilled the hangover soup. The dashcam audio looped in the interrogation room. Victoria and Marcus's filthy talk over the roaring engine. A mess, Eleanor, the detective said coolly, peeling her trembling hand away. Autopsy shows the same class of stimulants in your mother's and Mr. Davies's blood. He pulled up a photo of the pill bottle, labeled with the Thai elephant logo, imported by Marcus. Eleanor froze. She recognized the blue bottle Marcus had given to her. No, no, impossible, she cried, shaking her head. She backed into an evidence rack, toppled it, then swung a glass ashtray at me. I dodged. Shards burst against the wall like wedding day confetti. You devil! You killed my mother. Blood for blood, she howled, her face contorted, body trembling. The detective finally lost patience. Eleanor, calm yourself. Case closed. He slid his pen into his pocket. Mr. Thompson is free to go. On purpose, he left the closure report on the table. The last page, in red ink, circled the fire investigation finding. Ethanol gel carpets. Ignition temperature lowered by moisture. Static discharge cannot be ruled out. Passing Eleanor, I felt her clutch my pant leg. If I'd been in that car, she whispered, I'd be the one dead, right? I lifted her up gently. You're my wife. I will never allow you to die. Be good. We still have a lifetime ahead of us. Eleanor backed away in terror, staring at me as though I were a monster. Chapter 10. Truth Revealed. Victoria had almost no savings. All the inheritance Eleanor's father left behind had been blown on Marcus for years. The whole family had latched onto me like parasites. If Eleanor left me now, she'd be nothing. She followed me home, trembling. With a bitter laugh, she said, I'm the stupidest woman alive. I nodded and played on the TV the footage of them plotting my murder. The hotel room trysts with Marcus, the whispered schemes between Marcus and Victoria. Everything laid bare. Eleanor's eyes went wide in disbelief. I spread my hands. Pretty foolish, yes? You're not even Victoria's biological daughter. My investigation showed Eleanor was her father's child. Her birth mother died in an accident, and Victoria entered the household when Eleanor was 2. Unable to bear children and twisted at heart, Victoria teamed up with Marcus. They killed Father Davies, then had Marcus seduce Eleanor so they could kill us both and walk off with everything. Eleanor sank to the floor, wailing. Clutching my leg, she sobbed. Honey, I was wrong. My greed clouded my mind. They scared me into it. I never meant to hurt you. Please forgive me. I only smiled. She thundered her knees on the floor, kowtowing over and over, crying, Don't leave me. Please don't hurt me. I stroked her hair and said with a smile, I love you so much. Why would I hurt you? We've got a lifetime of fun ahead. Her mouth opened. She couldn't guess what I wanted. I smiled again. Letting her live on in guilt and terror is far crueler than killing her. Chapter 11. Psychological Games. I set Marcus's urn in the middle of the dining table. Eleanor's jade bangle clinked against her porcelain bowl. She stared at the protein powder flecks floating in her kanji, swept from Marcus's gym bag. The registry office opens at 9, I said. Shall we get that divorce in a bit? Scooping a spoonful of protein from the urn, I sprinkled it into her bowl. This was the 37th time I'd proposed divorce. Her tears fell precisely on the dial's 9 o'clock mark. Husband, I was wrong, she whispered, gripping my sleeve, her nails digging into the burn scar from 3 years ago. I pulled back. The urn tipped, powder spilling onto her slippers. The living room camera, hidden in her vanity mirror, streamed live. I tore open her collar and bit the collarbone where Marcus had left his teeth marks. See if Marcus can hear that too, I said. She convulsed. Before the monitor, incense smoke curled upward while Victoria's memorial photo seemed to smile. Day after day, Eleanor withered. Yellow patches bloomed on her face. Her figure grew bloated. Strangers pointed at her on the street. Night after night, she scrubbed at phantom bite marks until she knelt before me, begging, Please, husband, send me to a psychiatric hospital. I can't take this. I really can't. I opened the safe. She saw 100 unsigned divorce papers and shrieked, ripping them to shreds. The night I canceled all her credit cards, I spread copies of Victoria's will across the bathtub, soaking in bleach. Eleanor counted the inheritance figures. 37,000 yuan, I said. That's the coffin fund your mom set aside for you. I pressed the whirlpool switch. Water rose over the burn scar on her chest, left from her failed self-immolation on the winter solstice night. We sat aboard the anniversary yacht. In the sky above, a projection played the car sex video of her and Marcus. Reflections off the jade bangle flashed a harlot's Morse code. Let's divorce, I said, for the 200th time. She suddenly lunged toward the propeller. I yanked her back. She laughed like a child who'd found a new toy and said, "Husband, you can't bear to. You haven't played me to death yet." Chapter 12, Last Frenzy. That night, she slipped into my room again and asked, "Darling, can you smell my new bitter peach perfume?" Eleanor eased a nightgown strapped down to the crook of her elbow, a bruise on her knee nudging the laptop where I was coding. It was her 7th attempt to thaw the ice with her body, just like the first time we fooled around in the computer lab 5 years ago. I took off my blue light glasses. Lines of code flickered in her pupils. "Marcus see you in that outfit too?" I asked. The highlighter she'd so carefully dusted on her cheeks cracked with her frozen expression, like crazed porcelain glaze. Surveillance showed that same night, she'd swallowed half a bottle of melatonin. Yet, before the drug kicked in, she dashed to the neighborhood trash bay, plowing through garbage for the wedding photos I'd thrown out. A guard's body cam caught the feral cat that scratched her face, the starting point of her physical ruin. City Hospital dermatology files list 27 visits in that span. Doctors called it stress-induced urticaria with neurodermatitis. The pathology note read, "Patient persistently picks at facial skin, possible self-harm tendency." She turned to alcohol. Empty bottles in the bin still carried traces of hair tonic, mixed with vodka and poured into her stomach. Doctors said it sped the mass death of her follicles. At a class reunion, she wore a wig. When a false eyelash plopped into the soup tureen, her former bestie switched to whispering in English. While she was retching in the restroom, the waiter I'd planted accidentally soaked her coat and slipped a forged HIV-positive report into her pocket. On the day Eleanor died, she wore the same lace lingerie from our first night. Autopsy found her stomach packed with soil, and the last photo in her phone was an aging simulation screenshot from a photo editing app, captioned, "Honey, look, I finished it ahead of time for you." The coroner's final verdict: prolonged emotional suppression leading to organic psychotic disorder. Chapter 13, Victoria's Story. The night I married into the Davies family, 2-year-old Eleanor sat in the middle of the bridal bed, clutching a baby bottle. The toddler soaked the 3,000 yuan custom-embroidered bedsheets, and Martin Davies merely laughed. "Perfect," he slurred. "She'll soon have a baby brother to keep her company." Infertility stuck in my throat like a fishbone. Every week, Martin took me to the hospital for ovulation trigger injections. The nurses eyed me with pity, one of them whispering, "Mrs. Davies, your husband's sperm looks just fine." I knew they called me the hen that lays no eggs behind my back. On New Year's Eve 2000, Martin, drunk, hoisted Eleanor overhead and slurred, "How about Daddy's little princess inheriting the family business?" I smashed my champagne flute. The shards in my instep hurt less than his words. The first time I saw Marcus, he was coaching a society matron on a Roman chair at the Western Gym. At 24, his oiled physique gleamed. His rising chest was as graceful as a panther's. "Madam, you need to fix your interior pelvic tilt," he said. And when his palm touched the small of my back, I caught the scent of cedar beneath his sweat. That day, I bought 50 personal training sessions, my hand shaking so badly I keyed in the wrong pin 3 times. During our first locker room tryst, he bit my ear and whispered, "Martin won't live past next Ancestors' Day." I clawed bloody furrows down his back. Blood and plaster dust filled my nails. It was sun-showering the day Martin died. Marcus met me in the garage wearing surgical gloves. As he adjusted the brake pads, a nameless oil smear on his collarbone, like a snarl of a scar. "Once we get the inheritance, I'll take you to see the sea in Mauritius," he had said, brushing rain from my lashes. When Martin Davies's Mercedes-Benz S600 slammed into an oil tanker, I was trying on morning clothes. Firefighters said the corpse had burned until only a platinum wedding ring remained. I slipped off my matching ring and dropped it into the men's room urinal at the gym. At Eleanor's 28th birthday banquet, I tucked Marcus's business card into her designer bag. "A girl needs a perfectly sculpted physique if she wants men to dote on her," I said, personally swapping her into yoga pants that cinched bruises into her waist. Surveillance feed caught Marcus pinning Eleanor against a spin bike while I was applying lipstick in a killer shade. A stability ball ricocheted off the mirror, reflecting Marcus giving the camera the finger. I let Eleanor join our little game only because of George's fortune. I stared at the bedroom safe. His share certificates had to be inside. Meanwhile, the window showed my calf taut under a silk dress. 52 and still able to drive a man like Marcus crazy, thanks to more than just expensive perfume. Are you really going this far? Marcus asked behind me. Outside, torrential rain battered my son-in-law's brand-new Mercedes. The dashcam's red LED blinked like the ECG line of Eleanor's father in his final moments. That wedding 5 years ago should have been the end. I still see George kneeling on the tulip aisle, the shoulders of his cheap suit wrinkled like a stray mutt. His father's hand trembled around a fake jade bangle, sweat blooming dark clouds on his lapels. Yet Eleanor clung to his arm and declared she'd marry no one else. After I met Marcus, money poured out of me like water, so I set my sights on George. Who could have guessed he'd strike it rich, coding his way into AI stardom? Better to let him disappear by accident. Marcus tested the waters. How about a flyover crash? My brake tampering fee has to count toward the inheritance. Eleanor's mouth twitched in terror. That was our first formal conspiracy. Holding Eleanor by the waist, Marcus demonstrated the brake failure model. Kill with a borrowed knife, he said. Make sure there's no whole corpse left. Yet when flames curled over the leather seats Marcus and I occupied, I finally saw the good luck charm dangling from the rearview mirror, a photo of Eleanor and George on the back of her talisman. As the stench of burning flesh met my nose, I could hear Martin laughing. Chapter 14, Eleanor's Story. I lifted Marcus's fingernail clipping with a pair of tweezers and suddenly remembered the nude polish he first brushed on me a year ago. He'd been kneeling on one knee atop a yoga mat, fingers skimming my ankle as if by chance. Miss Davies, your arch is exquisite, he'd murmured. That polish and Marcus himself were my birthday present from Mother, a diamond-level VIP card at the gym, personal trainer included. In the footage playing now, he sized up my body as though unboxing a long-awaited parcel. Your husband stares at code all day. How would he know real beauty? Marcus said. Mother slid a Porsche key into the ignition. With a backless dress I bought you for next week's gala, she added. The cabin smelled of Road to the Underworld, the car fragrance Marcus gave me. Its resinous incense base tangled with the cedar of his sweat. At a red light, he suddenly leaned over to fasten my seat belt, stubble grazing my collarbone, my heartbeat racing. Shall we check your body fat percentage? He teased. I yielded and even begged them to spare George. In the end, Marcus's sweet talk broke me, and I agreed to their plan. I never imagined the arrow we loosed would pierce Mother and Marcus instead. On the day traffic police called to claim the bodies, I wore Marcus's favorite killer red lip gloss. Mother's diamond-tipped acrylic nails were still embedded in the steering wheel shards. Marcus's right hand clutched the severed brake line. The coroner tapped the report. Accident. Brake system eaten through by strong acid. I doubled over the counter and wretched, my mind a maelstrom. Never had I thought Mother and Marcus together. George laid divorce papers on the dining table beside a restored dashcam video. On screen, Victoria straightened Marcus's tie. Once George is dead, we'll make Eleanor disappear too, she said. She's not my child anyway. Then we'll take everything. I froze. I learned I wasn't Victoria's daughter at all, and from George's account, I learned my own father had been murdered by Victoria and Marcus. While I scrubbed the floor tiles for the third time, George repotted succulents on the balcony, humming under noise-canceling headphones. The soil under his nails looked fresher than the bruises on my knees. It was our 187th day of Cold War. He'd bought the little Haworthia Cooperi last month, saying, give it a bit of sun, and it shines. Unlike people, you are never satisfied. The duck soup's ready, I said, placing the clay pot on the table so the scar on my wrist showed. I'd carved it on his birthday last week. The blood had dripped onto the cake like strawberry jam, yet he'd never touched my tiramisu. Removing his headphones, he frowned. Some disinfectant splashed in the kitchen, he muttered. His chopsticks poked the dregs in the broth, calming herbs I'd bought with his insurance card. Since he'd caught me slipping melatonin into his sports drink, he'd never eaten my cooking again. The soup went into the succulents pot, sizzling fat singeing its leaves. The bathroom mirror still bore the blood scrawl from 6 months ago. That night, he dragged me from a hotel room. I'd swallowed an entire bottle of antidepressants in front of him. Leaning on the door frame, he'd filmed me acting half-baked. Swallow that slow, and the ambulance will beat the poison. I'd ended up gagging myself to vomit. He hadn't even flushed the toilet for me. Cold front tomorrow. I put your sweater out. I blocked his study doorway with a cashmere pullover. He was tweaking a new program. Blue light glazing the nape he once let me mark with bruising kisses. You're blocking the screen. he said, pushing me aside, his face colder than a polar night. Deep in the night, I squatted by the flower bed and ate dirt. The sour rot of humus was harsher than any medicine. Beneath the newly planted peony lay a dead stray. George had said last month its mating yells ruined his coding flow. Clods jammed in my throat. I suddenly recalled his proposal. Promised to take me to Iceland for volcanic rock cuisine. Having fun, Eleanor? George asked, flashlight blinding my eyes. Ash dusted his pajamas. He must have been burning incense for Victoria. A dry sob choked my apology. He knelt, stuffing aquarium pumice into my mouth. Lava stone purges better than bonsai soil, he said. I sat in the shower for 4 hours, my skin pruned, yet the earth's stench clung. At my last hospital visit, the doctor stared at my gastroscopy scan, shaking his head. All those fibers, did you eat the landscaping? I felt the CT shadow in my abdomen, like the moss terrarium George let die. He sat in the waiting area, scrolling through his tablet. His shopping cart held industrial-grade sprinkler heads. That evening, in front of him, I chewed the entire succulent to pulp. Expressionless, he said, if you chewed like that in front of the camera, your mukbang views would crush every influencer out there. Juice dripped from my chin onto the collarbone, still stamped with his drunken bite. Violence restrains violence, he said. When the funeral workers came to collect me, George was on the balcony grilling pancakes. He drizzled maple syrup over the burnt side. Special Hellfire flavor, just for you. The last thing I heard was his mechanical keyboard clacking in time with the urn's lock snapping shut. Later, the property manager warned in the resident chat, someone had poured concrete into the septic tank. A reply below. Sorry, pet got into something it shouldn't. Attached was a surveillance still of me scrubbing the floor, next to a Haworthia couperi, greener than ever.